everybody, and welcome back to my art channel. So I wanted to come on here and do this video for you. I know it's been a little while since I've done a video, let alone a face-to-face, and the last video that I put up was some time ago, but honestly I found that after I did my last paint challenge I felt pretty burnt out, and although I had lined up another art challenge for myself, I ended up putting it on hold and I just needed a break. So I had temporarily stepped away from just about everything. I mean, I kept creating, but I wasn't really going all tilt or full tilt at the time. So I'm just jumping back in and getting back into things. So, spending a lot of time on YouTube and other channels and figuring out what I want to do, I sort of decided that I wanted to do this video talking about art and where to start. So there's so many different ways in which you can create something, and I don't know how many people have posted, where do you start? I'm a part of quite a few different groups and things, and it's, what do you use? Do you use paper? Do you use canvas? Do you use wood? Do you use acrylics or watercolors or oils, or do you use sponges? Do I dot? Do I do a landscape? What do I do, right? And I found that some of it also comes down to cost. Do I want to invest in a whole bunch of art supplies, or do I go cheap? Where's the happy medium? What do I do? And I think the number one answer really comes down to start with what you have and go from there. As far as I'm concerned, there isn't one way or the right way or the wrong way to go about creating something. And it doesn't matter if it's a painting or something 3D or whatever it is you have in mind. If you have an idea, I say go for it. Now, before you say, well, art supplies is expensive, yeah, it can be. And I will be the first one to admit that investing in an art business or any business can be very costly up front. But when you're just getting started and trying to get your feet wet, I really think the best approach is just to figure out what it is you want to do. Do you want to draw? Do you want to paint? If you don't know, pick something and try it. There are, a million different ways to do something, and every time you turn around, there's a million more. So I say go with what feels right at the time. When I first started, I've been painting and creating and coloring since I was about the age of 5, and it's just gradually built from there. Back in 2015, 2015, just after I gave birth to my first son, I was doodling again a lot, and I was playing around with gel pens and black paper and different other materials, and my husband challenged me to take some of my ideas and put them on canvas. It was soon after that I made my first sale, and things slowly, escalated from there. But when I first started, even then, I was using basic raw materials. I grew up in a dollar store. That's what you use because it was cheap. And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely you gotta watch what you buy at the dollar store, because you do, unfortunately, especially with art supplies, you get what you pay for. But when you're starting out and you want to just try something, I think the dollar store, even Walmart, is one of the better places to go, because between the two different locations, I think you've got 95% of all your basics covered between paint and, whether it's knitting or even clay, basic clay, or Play-Doh, or beads, or jewelry making. Between the two different places, there are a million different things that you could do within a reasonable price range. You get a feel for what you like to do, and then you kind of go from there. So jumping back to what I like to do, last year I started playing with landscapes, which changed the ballpark for me. It got me playing with different types of paint and different types of mediums, and at first I was painting on canvas and thought that was okay. Honestly, since then, I don't actually have a big love for canvas, and that's a lot to do with the fact that I find that while no matter what medium you paint with, there's a lot of prep work involved, or can be, but I find that I'm not big on texture. If I want texture, I'm going to create that texture. And with canvas, I find that there's just so much prep work to get rid of the texture on there, unless you spend a lot on a really expensive canvas that is already prepped for you. And I'd rather not do that. So jumping back to some of the things that I like to use, sky's the limit. And some of this stuff I got from the dollar store. This is a piece of wood. It's just, ordinary tray. You can pick up the dollar store and paint anything on. at the dollar store, there are, like I said, tons of different things that you can do, and you're not limited to one thing or another. You know, if you're unsure on how to do something, really YouTube is one of your number one biggest resources that I would put out there. Between videos that I put out myself and a million other artists to follow, there are lots of different styles and things that you can learn from. Um, you're always welcome to ask questions and hope that you get an answer, but you know, ask questions and explore and expand your horizons. So you know, when you're deciding on where to start, really look at what you want to do and what is your budget like. So you know, some of my favorite products actually come from the dollar store. The paint that I use there is, I don't have a bottle with me at the moment, they're all downstairs, but I will throw a picture up here somewhere so you can see the one that I like to use in the dollar store primarily. Um, I really like that particular paint, but only for certain things. You have to decide, you know, what works best for what you're doing. And I do multiple different styles of art. I do everything from landscapes to dot art to painting on rocks to glass to pieces of wood to, you know, I think my favorite surface to paint on right now is sketchbook paper. But not just regular sketchbook paper. I usually paint a lot of my landscapes on watercolor paper. I find it such a versatile thing, and it's easy to store. You don't have to clog up a space full of canvases because they take up a lot of room, versus paper that can be stored in a folder or a box or a portfolio, you know, whichever is easiest for you. Um, Between that, you know, it's been a while since I've used black paper, but I spent a lot of time drawing on black paper. You know, you have to sort of decide what works for you, but that particular paint at the dollar store is fabulous. Yes, it's a little bit more watered down, and you will find that at the dollar store you'll end up with pieces of dried bits or dried paint within the liquid paint, and the reason for that is it's not sealed well enough, or it's not mixed well enough. So really you just have to decide, you know, what you want to do, or rather what it is you want to do. You know, start with one thing and broaden your horizons from there. When I first started, I was playing with everything. I was doing art pieces with marbles and rocks, and you know, then that escalated to doing doodles with gel pens. I was using, you know, pencil crayon for a while. I was using Sharpies. I have a stash of Sharpies downstairs. And again, some of these things you can get from the dollar store and some things you get from Walmart. And nowadays, Amazon's sort of the new Walmart, but basically you just got to decide, you know, where you want to go, what you want to do. And again, I can't stress this enough that if you don't know what you want to do, don't be afraid to try everything or anything. You know, if you want to paint on a piece of glass just because you want to see what it's going to do, go to the dollar store, buy a cheap picture frame, and paint on a piece of glass. It might be closer to plexiglass because it's dollar store, but it's still glass. You know, buy a cheap mirror, paint on the mirror. There are so many different things you can do, and the nice thing about art is you're not limited to anything apart from what you can come up with at the time. So that is sort of my spiel on that. I'd say my favorite types of paint right now based on landscapes. So some of my favorite things to use is between Walmart acrylics, Michael acrylics. This one you can only get at Walmart, at least here that I've found. Can't even find this one on Amazon, which is interesting. This I get at Michael's. So, you know, as you get more experience and your budget grows and things like that, yeah, I broaden into Michael's just because sometimes it was worth the effort, and you get picky with colors eventually. So, you know, Latex Basics are one of my favorite types of paint. Some of my favorite types of brushes is I really enjoy, you know, these square flatheads. I have a couple of round ones that I really like, and I've really gotten accustomed to using these long handled brushes. And I have found that I actually prefer these more over the short handles. And a lot of it's because, again, I do a lot of landscapes right now. And I find that with the fluidity of the long handle, it just gives you a little bit more fluid motions. And at the same time, you can chalk it up and be able to get more detailed strokes in there without having to sacrifice or change your brushes over and over again. Another one is this is a makeup brush. It's a blush brush. Yeah, say that 10 times fast, right? People would use it for makeup or blush. I don't. I buy them specifically for paint. This is something that I use a lot. It is great for blending or moving paint around in a soft way. I find that the mop brushes that you can buy for paint, yeah, technically it's what they're for, and I think they're called a mop brush. It took me a long time to figure that out. But I find that they leave stray hairs all over your painting, and it doesn't matter how new or how old that brush is. There might be a way around it. I never went as far as to try and figure it out. I just decided to look for a different brush that, met my needs, and this one did the trick. Fairly easy to clean, and it blends really, really well. And you can get a variety of different sizes. Actually, my favorite ones are the small ones. Those ones are fabulous for clouds and blending and even trees. They're phenomenal. I will do, another thing I really enjoy doing is doing ink doodles. If you don't know where to start, or, you're got a, I don't know how many times I've stared at a blank piece of paper and you had all these ideas, and all of a sudden you're looking at something blank and it vanishes. And you're sitting there going, okay, what do I do? Well, honestly, one of my tricks is I take a pen or a piece, or a pencil in this case, and I will draw a grid line going across the page. And all that does is put something on the page that you could eventually go back and erase, but it puts just something on the page, something to focus on. And then usually whatever ideas you had will come back and start flowing in. So, these doodles aren't what I would consider really worth much. They're just doodles of ideas that, you sit, you sketch, you figure it out, and, these I will end up translating into paintings or something else one day, or they'll never go past the sketchbook phase. It's just what I do. And again, the nice thing about, the dollar store and Walmart is the fact that you have access to, lots of different ideas and things to try. So, this is a tray and it's just wood, and you paint it and you go. If you're unsure on how to do something, as I said, YouTube is a fantastic resource for looking things up and, exploring and researching. So I am starting to ramble, but that is sort of my condensed, where do you start? I will be putting more videos up like this in the future. I think the next one I'm going to do will sort of touch on this a little bit and go into another topic. So if you have any ideas or anything you would like to know about, feel free to reach out and I will add that to my list of topics that I'm going to talk about. That all being said, if you would like to see some of my artwork, you can find all of my current work as well as a lot of the things that I have done in the past all up on my website. And I invite you to go and check that out. I'm also across most of the major social media platforms, ranging from Instagram to TikTok to Facebook to Pinterest. I think I'm on a little bit of everything, including Patreon. And I will dive into a little bit more of what I offer on Patreon and what you can find on my website in the next video. I thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will be back soon with another video. Happy creating! Hey everybody, welcome back to my art channel. I hope you all enjoyed today's video. If you did, I would invite you and encourage you to like, share, and subscribe. I also hope that you come back and tune in to see what else I upload, as I upload every week. And I thank you all so much for your continued support. If you would like to see more of my artwork, you will find it on my website as well as across all of the social media platforms that I use, and I will have them all linked down below. Again, I thank you all so much for tuning in, and I will see you all again in the next video. Bye, everybody.